Okay, good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is well. With God's help, tonight's class hopefully will be exciting, interesting, and very invigorating. But also that the sound quality, I hope, is better. We played around a little bit without my microphone. I've been getting some complaints that the sound was too low, but I hope we figured it out with some switches that we made. May it be so. Thank you. Baruch. We are living in awesome, incredible times, and things are happening at incredible speed, and people are waiting for deeper interpretations of the events that are going on, because we are breathlessly waiting for Moshiach, and we want to see the effects of Moshiach in the world. And it's very, very clear that it's happening. It's happening in front of our eyes. And that's going to be the subject. We spoke a lot last week in 2 classes, and today we will continue with some stunning new things, which I believe are really, really informative and exciting. And of course, we're going to try to connect it to the Torah portion, both of last week and of this week, and see where it all goes. Also to the time. Today was the second day of the month of Chodesh. It's the first day of the month of Kislev. It was the second day of Rosh Chodesh, which is a big holiday. It is a holiday that is first of all, it's Rosh Chodesh. It's always a special day. But it's a holiday for 47 years. As I mentioned, I think in the last class, the Lubavitcher Rebbe had a massive heart attack on Simchas Torah of the year 1977, and now it's 2024. And then he was healed, meaning he was released from his makeshift hospital, which was in his office, and to be able to go home. Rosh Chodesh Kislev, so that's the day that is celebrated as the day of the Rebbe's release. Now, on a very simple level, it's a day that gave the world the gift of the Rebbe for so many more years. That's on the simplest, most external level, and definitely deserves to be a holiday based on how much we know that the Rebbe's light and teachings and inspiration is influencing the world every single day by inspiring, millions of people, millions of acts of goodness and kindness, energizing, teaching, educating, inspiring, as is testified by the grand gathering of the Chabad emissaries this past weekend, where thousands of them gathered in New York, representing communities the world over. And it's a fulfillment. It's literally the fulfillment of God's blessing to Jacob, which, by the way, God's blessings to Yaakov of this week's Torah portion never found such direct and revealed expression like in recent history, in the recent times, through the Lubavitcher Rebbe. What does Hashem bless Yaakov? Hashem blesses Yaakov with infinity, with boundlessness, that there are no boundaries, that his light and his goodness and his truth will reach everywhere, and it will break every boundary. In the words of God, in this week's Torah portion, Ufaratzta Yama v'Kedma, you will burst forward, Yama to the west, Kedma to the east, Tzafayna to the north, V'Negman to the south. Never before in Jewish history was there a Jewish experience across the globe. There were major concentrations of Jews in many, many cities in the world, and Jews scattered around here and there. But that there should be Jewish infrastructure, holy infrastructure, across the entire world, every single place, is only in recent history. And the work of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, which sent out his emissaries across the entire world in the fulfillment of Ufaratzta Yama v'Kedma Tzafayna v'Negma, which is really the ultimate effect of the Jewish people. The Jewish people are not supposed to be a people living in isolation and separation from the world. The Jewish people are meant to infuse all of humanity with divine inspiration and godly consciousness. For that, it's not enough that we stay in one place and we shine our light to the world from Israel as a beacon of light, but that Jews literally need to bring the message across the world. And this was fulfilled by the Rebbe. And we have, and that's why the Rebbe's, everybody knows when you say Ufaratzta, you think Chabad. And that's why it's the Chabad song. And when we were kids, growing up in a non-Chabad environment in Borough Park, it was non-Chabad, it was like the way you made fun of Chabad, was you saying, Ufaratzta, because Chabad was the weirdos who have mitzvah tanks, who are rolling out their tanks and they have blasting music, singing Ufaratzta. But you know what? Everybody laughed. But the time they're finished laughing, Chabad has conquered the entire world. People are still laughing and scratching their heads, but yet Chabad is everywhere. So Chabad got criticized for its outreach work, for its thing, because it's never heard of. There's never been in Jewish history. It's never been in Jewish history something like this. It's new. And the Rebbe is why? No, because he's moving Judaism to its ultimate purpose. So of course it's going to be new. Of course it's going to be new things, because redemption is new. We're used to exile. We're used to conceal. We're used to constrictions. We're used to limitation. So just on that level, it's such a big holiday, because from 1977 is where the ultimate Ufaratz happened. It's like then, from 1977, there was a lot that happened till 1977. But from 1977, with the Rebbe being physically with us in a physical body here till 1994, during that time, he expanded Chabad and taught so much Torah and so much inspiration and so much light. That's on the most tangible, literal level. But on a deeper, godlier level, which means on a more inner level that we don't always see, for that we need to go deeper. The Rebbe spoke, the last time he spoke to us, on the day of Rosh Chodesh Kislev. And although he wasn't connecting it specifically to himself, I think in an open way, to his miracle, to his Yom Tiv, to his day, but it was obvious from the talk that he's referring to that. And the Rebbe was explaining how Rosh Chodesh Kislev is the day when the very, very quintessence of the Jewish soul reveals itself, which is the Moshiach in every soul. He explained that that's what Rosh Chodesh is. Redemption is connected to Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh is the birth of the moon. The Jewish people are compared to the moon, also connected to this week's Torah portion. Jacob and Esau, Yaakov and Esau. Yaakov is the younger son, the small guy. Esau is the big brother, the firstborn, the bigger brother. And he is called Benah HaGadol. He's called the big son. And Yaakov is the young son. And God says, as we know, that that's the sun, the big, ginormous luminary in the sky, the sun relates to the nations in the world, particularly to Esau, who's the older brother. I can't say Esau anymore. Please forgive me. I'm going to say Esau. So anybody who's listening and you're used to your Bible studies and we say Esau, please forgive me. I'm going to try to stick to Esau because I'm very comfortable with Esau. And I think Esau is becoming already Esau. So let's just stick to his Hebrew name. Okay? So please forgive for that. And Yaakov, I don't want to call him Jacob. I just want to call him Yaakov. Okay? So now that you all know what it is, Yaakov and Esau. So Yaakov is called the small son, and God says, to you I give the moon. And that's why the Jewish people count to the moon. The nations of the world are very much solar oriented, their calendars. The Jewish calendar is lunar based. So the new moon represents the Jewish people having a renewal. And that's why it always symbolized the coming of Mashiach. And the Rebbe explains in a fascinating talk, why would you think that the first day, the birth of the moon, should be representing Mashiach? Wouldn't we think that the full moon should represent Mashiach? Because the full moon shows on the Jewish people's light being fully manifest and fully revealed. Why would we? And that's why it's true that we have lots of Jewish holidays when there is a full moon. Like Passover happens in the full moon. And Sukkot happens, Pesach and Sukkot happens on the full moon. So, but why is what's it called again? Why do we make such a big deal that redemption is the Moilad Alavana, the birth of the moon? And the Rebbe explains that the main novelty of Mashiach, the true greatness of Mashiach, is that the essence of God is going to be revealed. How is the essence of God going to be revealed? Through the essence of our souls being revealed. And the essence of our soul is the moment of birth. Very interesting concept. We spoke about it at the Shabbos Kiddush this week, but obviously that wasn't filmed. When a baby is born, the first second the baby is born is when that's the essence of the person. After that, you have already particulars. Now he learns how to talk, and you get distracted by the particulars. You get distracted by the accomplishments. As you start growing older, you write a book, then you're an author. You become a professional, doctor, then you're a doctor. And no one sees you anymore, they see something about you. One of your achievements, one of your greatness. But there's something much deeper than that. There is the you yourself. When is the you the most profoundly stated? When there's nothing else but the you. When is there nothing else but the you? The moment the baby comes out of the womb. So there is nothing. And in that moment, really, it includes everything that's going to come from the baby eventually. Because had you not been born, then you wouldn't have written the book. Had you not been born, you would have never have, gone to the moon. Whatever it is, you won the Olympic medal. Why? Because you were born. You first have to be in order to do something. So the essence is related to that first second of beingness. And that's why the Rebbe says something really stunning. He says, in our daily life, our most powerful Mashiach moment is the moment we wake up in the morning and we emerge from being non-relevant in the world to being relevant in the world. When you're sleeping, you're not relevant. But when you're awake, you're present. So the moment you come from non-presence to presence, that's your essence. That's Mashiach. Mashiach has arrived. Because Mashiach is going to bring forth the essence. And if your essence is that you're a piece of God, wow. So the moment as we move in our day, we generally forget that essence. So imagine in Mashiach consciousness, this is a deep idea, and if you really want to study about it, we have a whole series of classes called Key to Redemption in our hands. And this is one of those talks. I think there were 4 or 5, probably 5 classes explaining it. And I don't remember its name, but if you go through the Key to Redemption, it's Parshas Toldos, and it has a certain name. I don't remember. Okay, it's in the series. If you want to really study this at great length, it's an awesome thing. But Mashiach is, if you can snap a picture of the moment you wake up, usually we're not too beautiful looking then, but you're still your essence. If you can catch that moment, freeze that frame, and then remember that truth, that you are a piece of God landing in this world. If you can freeze that and take that into everything you do, which means you do the smallest little thing, you're small thing, you're helping someone for a minute, you're smiling to someone. But if you can connect that to the fact that it's not just a smile, but it's your divine essence expressing itself in a smile to add light to this world. So then you are being God's light in this world. If you can teach a teaching during the day or study a study during, and connect it to your essence, not go away from it, but stay connected to the fact that your divinity emerging into this world, into beingness from non-beingness, and being able to continue that, and that should be visible in all of your expressions. And it's not us as limited, tiny, small, little beings, or our ego, or whatever it is. It's the deep. It's God manifesting himself through each and every one of us in all aspects of our lives. If you can capture that moment of birth and continue it throughout everything we do, that's Moshiach. Moshiach is going to be a time when everything is going to be infused with essence. But the Rebbe says that even though that's the message of every Rosh Chodesh, it's primarily the message of Rosh Chodesh Kislev. And I'm going to do this very briefly. Why Kislev? Because he says the word Kislev, the word Kislev starts with a chaf and a samach, which spell case. Case means concealed in Hebrew. And Lev, the second half of the word Kislev, is 36. So Kislev stands for going from concealment to instant, complete manifestation and complete revelation. But in the words of the Rebbe, what that means is, usually the essence is only there when there is no light. Because the moment there is light, like we said earlier, the moment there is performance, people don't notice anymore you, they notice your performance. They notice that you gave a good talk. They notice that you danced you're a good dancer. They notice that you're a good cook. They notice that you're, I don't know what, you're kind, you're nice, you're good. They notice your properties, not you. And the moment you're born, that's when there's you. But then there's not yet achievement, because it's just beingness. So usually there are two separate elements in a person's life. There is the essence, and then there is revelations. So let's look at the moon. Usually the moment the moon comes into the sky, you say, from it being a moonless night, and suddenly the moon is there, from non-being to being. So that's when you see, the moon. I don't even know anything about the moon. I don't even see much light of it. But it is there. We might have thought that the moon is gone forever. No, it isn't. It isn't. It's here. And then there's a second thing. You start enjoying its light, its luminance. Every day, more light, more light. The greatness of Kislev is that you're able to we said earlier, you're able to capture the birth of the moon and keep that birthing moment throughout the entire moon until you reach the full glow of the moon. You keep that sense of you are here. It's not something about you, but you yourself are here in everything you do. In our case, the Jewish people, their essence, which is the divine essence, is present in all of our accomplishments and all that we do. And in a sense, every human being can appreciate that. If God planted your soul in this world, you yourself, before you did anything, is the greatest gift. Like the Rebbe taught. You know what the Rebbe taught about a birthday? The Rebbe's teaching is the birthday is what your birthday really means. It's the day that God said the world cannot continue without you. That means the world needs the gift of you. And that's your birth. And when is that gift in its fullest? The day you're born. Now we need to make the most out of it. That takes our work to shine that light. But as we said earlier, usually when you shine the light, you go away from the essence. But the beauty of Kislev is that case means from concealment to revelation, and Lamed Vav is a number, 36. Lamed Vav spells 36, which represents the full gamut of the emotions. Because a human being is made up of 6 emotions, which is the sum totality of every type of light we can shine. And 6 times 6, because everything is complete when it has all the others included in it. So 6 times 6 equals 36. So to go immediately from the essence into the revelation, that's Moshiach. So based on that, take that to the Rebbe's Rosh Chodesh Kislev. So when the Rebbe is saying about the holiday Rosh Chodesh Kislev, so that makes the day so much more significant, this holiday. Because really this idea, like who brought the world to this consciousness? Who even brought people to celebrate birthdays? Think about it. In the Jewish world, in the religious, observant Jewish world, birthdays were very much on the back burner. It's not like no one looked at it, but it kind of, if you celebrated, it was more, more of a secular type of a thing. It wasn't necessarily your religiosity, your Jewishness that was calling you to celebrate a birthday. There were places that had some traditions to celebrate birthdays, but they were never, ever highlighted as a Jewish thing. The Rebbe was the one who brought the birthday into focus and encouraged everybody to commemorate their birthdays. And how to commemorate it? By taking the day and doing, not frivolously, not throwing parties and getting drunk, the Rebbe's way of celebrating a birthday was to take a couple of hours of reflection on that day, be with yourself, take a look at your life, examine how am I doing, how am I fulfilling God's dream when he planted me in this world, how am I fulfilling that dream? And then secondly, after that, take some good resolutions, gather friends together, give blessings, and let others bless you, and make a resolution to shine more light upon the world, to give the world more of the gift that is you, more of your divine light, godly talents and things. Be more impactful. Continuously be more impactful. Why was the Rebbe the one who gave us the birthday? Because the Rebbe is the soul that is related to birthday, because that's Moshiach. Moshiach is the birthing of the essence. So he highlights birthdays. Okay. Being that that's the case, and today is the day of Rosh Chodesh Kislev, or was the day of Rosh Chodesh Kislev, it was a very Moshiach day, a very powerful day. So, based on all of that, and based on the concept that we spoke before, how Jacob, Yaakov, this week in the Torah portion, when he goes to sleep at night, God shows him a vision of a ladder, of the angels going up and the angels coming down. And the main reason why Yaakov received the blessing that God told him, I will bless you, you will have, because Jacob was then in a very, 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 vulnerable moment. Yaakov, he was running away from his brother Esau. And as he was running away, he was scared. And Hashem told him, you're going to go away to a foreign land. You're going to be involved. You're going to be surrounded by hostile people, by people that are going to want to harm you. But I'm with you all the time, and I will guard you, and I will protect you, and I will provide for you. I will never forsake you. Story of the Jewish people. We've been in a hostile land. We've been throughout the entire world. It's the story of our father, but then it becomes the story of our people. But God has always been there with us. And although we've taken our share of hardship and difficulty and pain and suffering and persecution and whatnot, but we're still standing, not just standing, we are triumphant. We are enormously impactful in the world, no matter what was thrown against us. That's what God told Jacob, I'm going to be with you. And then he makes that promise. I will cause you to faratzta, I will cause you to explode to the east, to the west, to the north, and to the south, which means simply you will be everywhere. Even though you're a minority, you're a very small people, but you will be everywhere. But most important, your light is going to shine everywhere. You're going to influence everywhere. You're going to transform the entire world. When did God say that to Jacob? To Yaakov. As long as Yaakov was hanging out in the safety and in the protected environment of his father's house, as long as Yaakov was not challenged when his integrity, when his morality, when his holiness, when his godliness, or when his physical safety was not in jeopardy, when he was in a very, 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 very safe environment, he didn't receive that promise. It was only when he was going to take on the world. He was going into a place where he was going to have to deal with the outside world. So what do you see from here? That the objective, what God really wants from Yaakov, what he wants from the Jewish people, is not just to be a holy people of priests, separated, holy, segregated, living behind ghetto walls. That's not what God wants of the Jewish people. God wants the Jewish people to be fully integrated into every aspect of life, yet to remain completely separated from the world. Integrated, yet separated, because only when you're separated, in the sense, separated means there is a border, an understanding that Jew is Jew, non-Jew is non-Jew, and the Jew is meant to influence, guide, and to teach, and the non-Jew is meant to support and help the Jew in that process. And that's the ultimate dynamics. So when Yaakov was making his way finally into the world, and he was going to face primarily two great obstacles. One of them, he spent 20 years in his uncle's house. And his uncle was a con artist, a cheater, a liar, and a magician, a sorcerer, someone who would try to play every trick in the book to try to contaminate Yaakov's soul. First of all, to try to get Yaakov to become lax in his Torah observance, in his commitment to God. That's number one. And number two, to cheat him in any other way. And Yaakov, so that was the first challenge. And in that environment, Yaakov had to build his family, because that's where he found his 4 wives, 2 wives, which later became 4 wives, built his entire family, which, as the Rebbe points out so many times, Yaakov did not. The first Jewish family was not built in a ghetto. It wasn't built in Jerusalem. It wasn't built in a very protected, safe environment. It was built in the midst of the greatest challenges and difficulties, when he was surrounded by every type of darkness, by every type of, in other words, he had all the cards stacked against him. And yet, he built a holy family, a God-fearing family, a noble family, a family of goodness, of kindness, despite the fact that they were surrounded with wicked people. That was his first challenge. His second challenge was that he's going to have to take on the real brutes of the world. And that was Esau. Because on the way back, when he finally finished with his uncle Lavan, he was going to deal with the real beasts of the world. And what is his job with them? To neutralize them and ultimately to transform them. And Yaakov, that's when before he meets Esau, he has an encounter with him, as we're going to see in next week's Torah portion. He wrestles with the angel. You know who the angel is? Satan himself. Satan himself comes to wrestle with Yaakov, and Yaakov triumphs over him. That's the Jewish people fighting all the forces of darkness, gaining power over it. But the greatest novelty and the greatest is that ultimately the Jewish people take their brother Esau and flip Esau over, that he becomes an ally from being a hostile, from being a brother out to kill his brother Yaakov. And yet Esau flips over and he becomes an incredible ally and an incredible support. And that's going to be in the days of Moshiach. You know, when Yaakov and Esau met, they had a moment where they kissed. And I mentioned this last week. But this part I didn't mention. Esau says to Yaakov, Gevald. Esau says to Yaakov, come, let us go together. Join me. We're going to go together. I want you to come visit me. I want to show you my family. Esau had then moved to the place called Seir, Har Seir, Mount Seir. So he tells Yaakov, come along with me. We'll go together. And I'll walk you, or you come visit me, or whatever. And Yaakov says to him, you go ahead. I'll come. And the Midrash tells us, and Rashi brings it, Yaakov didn't lie, because in the end, Yaakov didn't go. He let Esau go back home, and then Yaakov kind of never showed up. Yaakov went his way, and then, so did he lie? So the Midrash says, God forbid. Yaakov is truth. However, the promise to come visit Esau is going to be in the end of days. It's going to take thousands of years. Why? Because the real reason why Yaakov and Esau need to connect is because for Mashiach to come, for the ultimate revelation of Mashiach, we need Esau's energy. Mystically and Kabbalistically, Esau, the older brother, the father of the entire, what we might say, Western world. I'm not saying everybody's descendants, but that's the, the Christian West, the Roman and then Christian, and then eventually the Western world. They have certain incredible spiritual power, enormous power, which that power, but it's unrectified. When that power is rectified, and when that power is put into place, it's what brings down the incredible lights of Moshiach. So Yaakov has all the vessels. He has the receptacles. he has the containers. But the energy, the trigger, the one who triggers the enormous lights of the infinite lights of God is connected to Esau, the older brother. So Yaakov needs to fix Esau. And for thousands of years, that's the work of the Jewish people during this long exile, which is called the exile of Esau, of Edom. To live in the lands of Edom and slowly but surely fix and fix and fix and change the attitudes of Esau until Esau becomes the best friend of Yaakov. And together they go ahead, and as I shared with you last week, Esau himself, his descendants, Edom, the kingdom of Edom, according to Rabbeinu Bachaya, are the ones that are charged with building the temple. I don't think they're the building of it itself, but they will lead to the state where whatever obstacle is now on that there, which is the fact that the Palestinians are claiming that mountaintop to be theirs, and the Al-Aqsa is on that space, it seems like Esau is going to be the one, the way I understand this, Rabbeinu Bachaya, to clear that space so the Jewish people can go up and build their temple. And it seems like, from what's going on now, that we have pretty much arrived. We're seeing stunning things. We're seeing absolutely miracles, as we discussed in the classes. The transformation that happened over the last couple of years started in 2016, where it seemed like everything was going in the opposite direction. Israel's grip on Jerusalem and Israel's grip on those ancient lands that God had, the land of our forefathers, the land that is always, was slipping away because of incredible international pressure, because the entire world decided to legitimize the false narratives, the false claims of the Palestinians, the lies that they were perpetuating. And the world was to the point that UNESCO went and clearly stated, I think I mentioned in the class a while ago, where they stated that that mountain, that hilltop, has nothing to do with the Jewish people. It's as if it were erasing all the history. It's not even history. It's archaeology, as we discussed last week. Everything is there. You can go there. You see the stones. The roads are still there from the ancient Jerusalem, from the pilgrimages who came every time to the Holy Temple 3 times a year. Everything. There is mikveh there where people would dip, ritual baths, clay vessels. I mean, everything is in display. It's all there. And yet they denied it all. And I mentioned this on Saturday night at a talk that I gave, which is really, really stunning, is that all the way till January 15th, 2017, you can look this up. Look what happened on January 15th, 2017. So the elections were in America when Trump won the election against Clinton was in 2016. But Trump went into office on January 20th, just like this year, he's going to go into 25. It's in the odd year. The election is on the even year, but that's in the odd year. So in 2017, January 20th, my birthday. So I don't know. I feel I always have a connection with inaugurations. In any case, what happened? So on January 15th. There was supposed to be, I don't even know if they did it, or they maybe even held it, Paris. They were going to have a meeting of nations, of heads of state. And John Kerry was supposed to attend. And But, if you read about it, their point of doing it was 70 nations. That's what is so amazing. According to Torah, there are 70 nations. Because there are 70 ministering angels above that are the angels of the nations. And these 70 ministering angels, until they're fixed, they're troublemakers. They want to hold on to power. Because once Moshiach comes, the power is taken away from them, the authority is taken away from them, and the authority is given to the Jewish people. And to the Shekhinah, who is the mother of the Jewish people. And then the nations will all benefit 1,000,000 billion times more, but they don't know it. They think that they're going to lose out. So they want to hold on to power. So when they feel and they sense subconsciously, the nations down here, or the ministering angels up there feel that their power is slipping away from them. So they do whatever they can to try to stop it. So as I told you last week, after the Rebbe had already declared in 1992 that the time of redemption has arrived and we're ready to build the temple, we're ready there. We're ready at the point that everything, Moshiach is already controlling the world. They threw a temper tantrum. And that's what happened from 1992 until 2014. By the way, they were putting enormous pressure. In 2014, the whole negotiations that Obama was trying to lead and John Kerry was trying to put together fell apart. I think after 9 months of negotiations, where ridiculously, I think at that time, if I'm not mistaken, the Prime Minister of Israel, his name was Barak, what was his name? Barak. I forgot his name. Anyways, the guy, whatever, he sadly, in the most insanity, was willing to give up, agree to a two-state solution with Jerusalem, and even give up the Temple Mount. As a secular Israeli, couldn't care less about the Temple Mount, and was willing to relinquish it. And then he would have been given the Nobel Peace Prize as finally making peace with the Palestinians. Unbelievable. Thank God. And Bill Clinton said this 2 weeks ago, at a month ago. Clinton was in a rally for Kamala Harris. And during the rally, he was faced with a lot of, pro-Palestinian opposition who were kind of taking part of the rallies of on the left side. And he had to try to explain, why, because they were arguing that the Biden administration was way too pro-Israel. Way too pro-Israel. So he had to explain to them. So he was explaining how October 7th was uncalled for. He says, what they did, the attack was uncalled for. What would you do? And then he said, listen, I know, because the negotiations that we had as when I was president and later when others, was we gave, everything was given to them on a golden platter. Israel was willing to give everything away. Completely insanity. But yet they were willing to do it. And the Palestinians rejected it. The Rebbe said that. You know the Rebbe said that? The Rebbe said that God will do a miracle, that the Israelis will want to give it and the Palestinians won't take it. Only the Rebbe was able to say that. He saw it all. He literally saw it all. He said this, what would happen. So on 5 days before Trump became, already after they saw that the game's over, or the truth is they didn't really know yet what Trump is going to do, but he wasn't tested yet, what exactly he's going to do. But they tried to implement this against Moshiach agenda to try to force Israel to a place where they can't return anymore, where internationally, again, America allowed the UN resolution, I forgot the name, the resolution, horrible resolution, that all the lands pre-67 that are outside of the 67 borders that Israel conquered in a war of defense is all occupied territories, okay, including East Jerusalem. This was but in addition to that, they had this conference in Paris where they invited 70 nations, and one of the ideas, and they were finally going to make headway, and this basically they were going to force Israel. They were going to decide what Israel has to accept. It was something, and obviously Trump became president in the beginning of 2016, and he right away changed the entire approach to Israel and the entire policy. As I mentioned last week, he completely dismissed the Palestinian claim. He empowered the Jewish people on Jerusalem. He announced Jerusalem as the capital of the Jewish people. The Golan Heights he declared as Israel's sovereign land, and so on and so forth. So that was unbelievable. And as much as it was unbelievable then, I was arguing that years ago, and people were saying, okay, but, is it for real? And then it was really put to the test, because in 2020 he lost, and everybody thought, okay, it's all over. This that you're saying, this is Mashiach, this is powers, Mashiach is behind this all. This is all speculation. It's conspiracists. Some people were calling me the Alex Jones of the Jewish. Some conspiracy theorists. I'm making up stories over here. But you know what? Even people that were having doubts on it, I think now, when against all odds, he returns to power after he was completely decimated, after he was completely, at a point where, as we mentioned then, no one was going to go along with him. He wasn't going to have any friends. Everybody was abandoning him after January 6th and all that. And yet, he... Just 1 second. And yet he comes back mysteriously. So this is really unquestionable that, as I call the name of this class, Moshiach is in the driver's seat. That's what's going on here. And I don't know the future. I can't tell the future. But I don't think that the forces on the other side are ever coming back again. I think it's been decimated. It's been completely obliterated. His power now is unchecked in the sense. And if you need any more proof to what his agenda is regarding Israel, you've got to see President Trump's tweets today. Now, one of the enormous, amazing things of what I am using as proof that whatever is happening is related to Moshiach, and it's related to the Rebbe, which to me is the same. What was my proof, and what is one of my clear proofs? Number one, in both the elections, he or his close family went to pray at the Rebbe's resting place. In both cases. In 2016, the night before the election, his daughter and his son-in-law went to pray. And in 2020, just 2 weeks or whatever, 3 weeks before, in October, about less than a month, a bit less than a month before the elections, President-elect Trump went to the Ohel himself and stood over there and offered prayers. And as I mentioned in the last class, that's when the pendulum swung in his favor. It's unbelievable. It's literally stunning. But in addition to that, if you take a look at many of the dates that President Trump in his first term used and events that happened to help him to his presidency, you see that the dates coincide, and I didn't get to say this in last class, they coincide with important dates on the Chabad calendar, on the Jewish calendar in general, and on the Chabad calendar. In other words, whenever a special day on either a holiday for all of world Jewry, or a holiday celebrated particularly by the Chabad Hasidim, by the Rebbe's Hasidim, either associated with Chabad in general or with the Rebbe himself, it's on those days that Trump did the most amazing things. And I'm not arguing that Trump had an advisor, a Chabadnik, who told him what to do. I think it was all without intention. Or else I would have to say that he has a Hasidic calendar in his pocket, and he looks at all the Hasidic holidays, and he says, I'm going to make another move now. I'm going on to Twitter or Truth Social, and I'm going to make another announcement. I'm going to shock the world again by something else that I'm going to announce. And let me look which day I'm doing it. Oh, next week there seems to be a good holiday, a Jewish holiday. Let's coincide it with the day. I'm pretty sure he doesn't do that. So obviously, how is it happening? Because he's not doing these things by choice. Hear very well what I'm saying now. It says, Leiv Malachim biyad Hashem. The hearts of kings are in the hands of God. God is the one who directs kings and world leaders to do things. In a sense, a world leader has the least free choice than anybody else. Because God is running the world. And world leaders have the most impact on the world. That's why they are pawns in God's hands. Now, obviously, when they make certain decisions, it's because they think they're choosing it because they're choosing it. But the ideas that pop in their heads that I should do this, and the fact that they pop into their heads to do it on that day, the drive, what pushes them subconsciously, is some spiritual force that's driving them to do it. So let me just share with you a few, which are really stunning, which includes today, Rosh Chodesh Kislev. So one incredible one was start at the beginning, when the Electoral College voted the first time in 2016 still to everybody had to count the electoral votes. Because the way it works like this, we vote, but our votes really don't mean anything in essence. When you vote, you're basically directing your state representatives to vote for the person that the majority has calls for. So really the state representatives, it's in their hands. It's so much so that in 2016, a few of these states' representatives were so upset that Donald Trump was going to be the president that they were threatening that, notwithstanding the election, telling them that they have to vote this way, they're going to ignore it and they're not going to listen, and they're going to vote. They're going to cast their electoral votes for Clinton. Obviously, it was unacceptable and they didn't do it. But there were such threats. You can look it up online. So November 5th was the election, 2016. And December, I didn't look it up today, so I don't know. But sometime in December, it wasn't January 6th. It might have been what would be equivalent to January 6th of that, but it was in December. So I'm not sure it's the same procedure. I think the January 6th procedure is a later procedure that's happening in Congress. But I think before that, there is some kind of an official date where you officially count the electoral votes. That day, and that's the official day that the president is given the mandate and given the go-ahead, the license to be president. Although he knows for sure he's going to be president and he puts together his cabinet and he does already whatever he does. But the legalities of it start when this official observance is done. And I don't know the English date for it, but I looked it up years ago. I don't know on the Gregorian calendar, but it was on the Hebrew calendar on the 19th of Kislev. The 19th of Kislev is the biggest Chabad holiday, most celebrated the most, the day the Alter Rebbe was released from jail. So the fact that the day that he was released from jail, that's the day that Trump was given legitimacy, indicates to me, for my small little brain, that the energy behind him, the force, the spiritual powers that are directing him and putting him there, are the energies, the holy energies of Hasidism, which is the light of Moshiach. See, the date is a sign. It's a signpost. Now we go to the next, a year later. Now there were many, many more things, but I'm just going to pick the main ones. A year later, on the 19th of Kislev, in the year 2018, and I don't know either, again, I don't have the Gregorian calendar in front of me and check the date, but I will tell you, you can look it up. In the if you will look this one up, it will say a day earlier. It won't show the night. It'll give you the, if you look up, what are you looking up? The day that Donald Trump announced that Jerusalem is going to be recognized by the United States as the eternal capital of the Jewish people. This is the really big one. Okay, Jerusalem was being contested. Everybody else in the entire world was trying to minimize and to uproot the Jewish people from Jerusalem. He went against the entire world with boldness that is like unbelievable. And again, everybody threatened that if you do that, you're going to have a World War III, because all the Arab nations are going to go to war on that. And yet he stood proudly on the White House and he made the announcement. And that was the underlying, what we call the platform for the next move was, since Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, we have to move the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which is huge. If that's not Moshiach, that the nations recognize Jerusalem. Again, what did the Romans do? And what did Esau do? Esau, the father of Rome, what did they do? They ripped the Jewish people away from Jerusalem. And guess what? The Romans were the one who gave the name Palestine. They made up that name. It didn't even exist. They wanted to eradicate the Jewish connection to the city. So they wanted to uproot the name. They came up with this Palestina. So a Roman descendant, and as we said last week, possibly Esau himself reincarnated based on all his characteristics. He makes that announcement. But when? Again, it was a day in December. I don't know which day it was. In the United States, it was the 18th of Kislev. But in Jerusalem, when he stood there in Jerusalem, it was already nighttime. So in Jerusalem, it was already the holiday of the 19th of Kislev when Trump made that announcement. Is anybody going to argue that that's just another fluke accident? By the way, just to give you how powerful the day of the 19th of Kislev is, a couple of years earlier, before all of that, remember the monster Saddam Hussein? Remember when he disappeared after the United States finally decimated the second Gulf War? They decimated his army. He ran for his life. He ran and ran and he hid. Remember when he hid in a little spider hole? He was literally hiding in the ground. He buried himself alive. He was hiding, and they were looking and looking and looking. There was one Sunday morning, I remember, when the news came out. They found him. The United States Army found him. They got some of his people gave away the hiding out. They find him. You can see the picture. They pull him out from the ground, and he's all disheveled, his face. He looks. Then they put him on trial in Iraq, and the Iraqis executed him. They hung him. A vicious human being. I mean, this guy is like as vicious as it gets. It was the 19th of Kislev that they found him, and they pulled him out of there. It's almost like, I'm sorry, the Alter Rebbe, Hasidism, the light of Mashiach strikes again. It's awesome. So there you have two major events in Trump's first presidency on the 19th of Kislev. Let's continue. Another major event that he did, this is not so known to the general world, but it means the most to the Jewish world. A few days after announcing Jerusalem, he stunned the Jewish world again, this time on the last day of Hanukkah, when he released a Jew that was anti-Semitically persecuted in the United States and given 27 years behind bars for nothing. They concocted accusations against him, and they threw the book against him for running a Jewish slaughterhouse in the Midwest named Shalom Rubashkin. He spent 8 years in prison, and eventually Donald Trump commuted his sentence. He didn't pardon him, but he commuted his sentence. And for the Jewish people, we so connected because everybody felt there was a persecution to each and every one of us. And when he was released by President Trump, when? On the 8th day of Hanukkah, Hanukkah is a big holiday. The 8th day of Hanukkah is the highest and most powerful day of Hanukkah. And it was towards the end of the day. It was almost like Hanukkah was over and bam! Wow. Oh, were we dancing then? Oh, was it joyous? Oh, was that happy? I mean, if you could look up the videos, he came out of jail because everybody was so connected to him while he was in jail. People sent him letters, children sent him. Everybody knew that he's suffering from a blood libel, literally. And when he came out, it was Simchat Torah for the Jewish people. There was such jubilation and singing and dancing. It was a very auspicious. Again, he did it on an auspicious day. Let's continue. One of his big things that he did was that, first of all, I have to just throw a couple of major things that he did in his first term, which is unbelievable for the Jewish people. He shut down UNRWA, funding for UNRWA. Now we see in this last battle that UNRWA teachers participated. Again, this is American tax dollars paying for schools for Palestinian people, children, and whatnot. And as we know, those schools are all occupied by Hamas terrorists who hide weapons in schoolrooms, as we know. But in addition to that, the teachers themselves of UNRWA were Hamas people who participated in the massacre of more than, they had like a whole bunch of them. Israel proved to the rest of the world a bunch of, and Israel saying, what are you giving me UNRWA? Trump has a very good nose. He immediately said, I have nothing to do with them. He shut down their funding. He even went and he kicked the Palestinian office out of Washington. It was unbelievable what he did. It was so different than the State Department. It was so different than everybody until the time. And here you got this person, no one expected it, who becomes the best friends of Israel, the best friend of the Jews. And you know Trump keeps on arguing that. No one did anything close to me. How come the Jews are not voting for me? The liberal Jews, it's hard to understand. Then it continued. He pulls out of the Iranian deal. Catastrophe. We know funding Iran costed us close to 3,000 Jews. All the Jews that fell now in this war, including all those that were murdered on October 7th, is because Iran is behind, is supporting all these Hamas. Hamas wouldn't be standing without Iran. They wouldn't be Hezbollah would not be standing without Iran. So all of their powers are all coming from the Iranians. And under Barack Obama, who decided to become the best friends with the Iranians and try to pretend that he's saving the Jewish people, Israel, from annihilation by making this nuclear deal with Iran that didn't even demand that he was going to lift the boycotts, because already any normal president was holding back funding from Iran because everybody knew that Iran is very dangerous. And Barack Obama decided, no, we're gonna stop Iran by making them nuclear. By doing what? Making them, releasing billions of dollars for them. But what are we gonna get in return? A promise that for 10 years they're not going to build their nuclear arms. Which meanwhile they would be doing it anyways because they would be getting all their money and sneaking their money. But even if they were to monitor them, and even if they were, but their promise was, I don't even think it was for 10 years. I think it was for 7 years. And even that, he wasn't demanding of them to stop building missiles and all the other things. Just stopping the nuclear, and that would be under, surveillance. When everybody knows that Iran was violating all the surveillance. They weren't letting anybody in to check. They wouldn't let inspectors in. They said it's up to us to decide where the inspectors. It was a joke. What did Trump do? With brazenness, he went against it. He said, I'm pulling out of it. Saved Israel again. Very sadly in 2020, when Trump left the office and President Biden went in, he rushed right back to support Iran. What kind of utter stupidity. What kind of utter ridiculousness, and claiming that this is going to lead to peace in the Middle East, when we know it only aggravates and it only causes the bloodshed that it caused. So this entire war and all those people that were killed is a direct result of this. So Trump pulled out of the Iranian deal, and then he did something stunning. What did he do? He took out the most powerful, the one who was in charge of the, what are they called? The Revolutionary Guard. The main Iranian wing of the military, their real, who are the greatest threat for Israel and for all the peace-loving countries that are there that would like to live in peace. This was the threat. And who was their general? Who's been there, and he was notorious as a gangster and as someone who was extremely dangerous, a fellow by the name of Soleimani. And what did Trump do? In a stunning day, the news broke. The United States military surprise attack. They took him out. Well, guess what? What was the date? The day was Hey Teves. The 5th day of the month of Teves. Again, I don't have the date on the calendar, but that you can look up which day it was. But it corresponds to Hey Teves. You know what Hey Teves is? Hey Teves is the day in Chabad that it's a big holiday of the Rebbe. Because there was a court case where the Rebbe where they wanted to take away all of the library of the Rebbe, all the Hasidic books and whatever, his father-in-law's library, claiming that it was private property. But I'm not going to go into the whole story. And that day, the Rebbe won in the federal court. The Rebbe won the case, and for Chabad Hasidim, and it was a personal fight against the Rebbe, as explained in another place. I'm not going to go right now. The Rebbe won that day, and that day goes down forever as a day of Yom Tiv, and it's called Didan Natzach. We won. That was the song that was sung at that time. Well, which day did Trump decide to take down Soleimani? It was on that day. He didn't really decide. That's the day that he was vulnerable. But why did God orchestrate it to be that day? Because who is doing it? Who is behind it? This is all Mashiach powers. Now let's take it even further. Quickly. Another very important things that Trump did in his first presidency is, there is this lame excuse and there is this horrible argument. People that argue that if you're anti-Israel, you cannot be, that's not anti-Semitism, because Israel is not, the Jewish people are not a nationality, they're a race. So if you're not attacking Jews as Jews, but you're attacking Israel, even if you're doing it in a vicious way and for no other reason than Jews are, because it's a Jewish state, but that's not anti-Semitism. So on one day, there was a what is it called when the president does executive order. There was an executive order by President Trump where he redefined the Jewish people to include that the Jewish people, including, they're not just a race, they're also, I'm not exactly sure all the details of it, but they're also a nationality. And therefore, if you oppose the Jewish people on the grounds of Israel, you want to BDS them and so on and so forth, you're not going, that's anti-Semitic, and you're going to be defunded. You're not going to get, by doing that, he basically made it impossible for so many colleges, organizations, states even, or whatever, to boycott Israel, or to do all kinds of other harms that they want to do to Israel in order to for whatever fabrications. Because that would be qualified as similar to racist. It would be qualified as anti-Semitism, because anti-Semitism includes the Jewish people as a nation. And that was huge, a huge favor, huge. What happens? When did he do that? On another day of the Rebbe. Another holiday of the Rebbe. During the year, the whole court case that I mentioned earlier from the Lubavitcher Rebbe lasted for 2-3 years. And during that time, there were small victories. Because they had to win certain things until you have the final victory. So the day that I mentioned earlier, Hey Teves, was the day of the complete final. The judge handed down the final verdict that the library belongs to the Hasidim, belongs to the Rebbe, and it's not whatever. That was the final. But on the way, there were a few days where the judge ruled in favor of the Rebbe, and these days were also considered a holiday. One of the big ones was a day in Kislev. I'm not sure which day it was. A day in Kislev, which is one of the Didan Natzach days. And what did they decide on that day? That the Rebbe does not have to come to court to testify. The prosecution wanted to drag, in order to belittle the Rebbe, that he would have to show up to a court. On that day, the judge ruled the Rebbe does not have to come, but that rather the lawyers can come to his residence and do what's called a deposition in his house. Interview him, and that would be considered good enough. He doesn't have to come. Now you have to understand that for the Hasidim, this would have been the most painful thing to see at all, a shaming of, a disrespect to the Rebbe, that he has to go down to court and face a judge publicly. Now the Hasidim, now watch that. The Hasidim on that day interpreted, this was the interpretation at the time. When the judge handed that down, the Hasidim explained it this way. The judge didn't give this reasoning, but the Hasidim gave this reasoning. You know what the reasoning is? A king, according to Torah law, a king is not allowed to go to court to testify. If a king, let's say, knows testimony for someone, we don't require the king to stand in front of a judge, because it's a belittling of the king. For the honor of kingship. So the Hasidim said the Rebbe is a king. He should not go to court. And on that day, it certified it. Well, if there is a king, there has to be a nation. No, there's no king without a nation. In that sense, the Jewish people are not just a people, a race, but they're also a nation. Which day did Trump use to declare that the Jewish people are a nation? The very same day that in Chabad they're celebrating the idea that the Rebbe didn't have to go to court, which the inner interpretation is that he's a king. So not only do you see another amazing thing for the Jewish people on a day associated with the Rebbe, but the character of what he did matches the essence of the day, of that holiday. Now you remember when they had the impeachment trial against Trump? During his presidency, they had 2 impeachments. One was during his presidency, maybe even 2 during his presidency, and then one they tried to do afterwards. But during his presidency, the first impeachment, in the end, he wasn't impeached. It was a trial, and then he was vindicated. Do you know the day that he was not found guilty, kind of, when the senators voted, whatever, and they voted not to impeach, because they didn't have enough votes? You know which day it was? Yud Shvat. The day the Rebbe took on the mantle of leadership of Chabad. And these are the only ones I'm going to review to you today, but there's quite a few more. I'm just showing you. And so I was arguing all these arguments a couple of years ago. How can you not see? How can you not see that it's not him? That's my argument. He's an instrument in the hands of God, and he's being directed by Moshiach. Now, if you think he was directed by Moshiach in his first term, his second term is going to be completely subservient to Moshiach, whether he knows it or not. As illustrated, see, something happened in Trump's life between his first term and his second term. What happened? He had a near-death experience. He came so close to, God forbid, having his mind blown open by a bullet. And we all know what happened. First of all, it was stunning. It was stunning what happened. First of all, you saw, if you like him or you don't like him, if you think he's the worst thing that ever happened to humanity, whatever it is, one thing you can't argue is the man is a leader. Because to be able to stand up after you were just so close to being dead, your instant, I don't even know what would happen to me. You collapse. You're terrified. You're pale. You're on the floor. You don't even know what to do when the bullets are flying. To be able to stand up and face your people and say, fight, fight, fight. That's like, wow. And Elon Musk then, which we're going to talk about soon, by the way. Elon Musk then threw in his hat. Then he decided that he's endorsing Trump. Because he said, listen, this is a leader. This is not a phony. I like his policies or not, he's a brave man. He's made out of steel. This is the guy I'm going to support. You know who else? Facebook, Zuckerberg. He was blown away. He said, this is like, he said it was the most bad, whatever, they used not such a nice word, but the idea is it's like someone who's like I've ever seen. And these guys are, Zuckerberg is no Trump fan. He tried to silence him. Facebook tried to, stifle him and throw him that he kick him off Facebook, closing his accounts. They were doing this in January in 2020. They were trying to shut him off completely. So why was I saying this? Because but what happened to him then? So first of all, when someone goes through such an experience, you watch when he accepted the nomination at the Republican convention this year. When he spoke, you saw a different Donald Trump. The way he was talking was that he said, remember when he said that? He said, I should not be here now. I should not be here now. I am here now because of God. And basically, I don't think it was only a moment. I think that literally went deep inside his psyche. And he knows. Now, it doesn't mean he's not going to be firm. Doesn't mean, quite on the contrary, I think he's going to be 1,000,000 times firmer than he was. But the mandate that he has is in addition to mandate from the American people, he believes very strongly that he has a mission from God to do certain things in this world, which is the truth. I know for a lot of people this is very scary because he's now believing that he's got godly, God. Yes, this is scary for many people. But without a question, in my mind, if you're listening to my class, I am telling you with absolute certainty, he's an agent of goodness, not an agent of evil. And no matter how much they're trying to throw on him, he's not here to destroy the world. He's here to repair the world. Not to repair, to help repair. Okay? But one of the interesting things that happened was the bullet hit him and made a hole in it, it clipped his ear. So it wasn't me that said this, other rabbis. Rabbi Weisberg was one most noticeable to have said this, which is really cool. And Rabbi Kessin, who speaks a lot about Trump. So he's been saying a long time that, Trump is Esau and a reincarnation of the same ideas that I was talking. But he had then said that, it said last week in the Torah portion that the older son, the older brother, has to serve the younger brother. V'rav, the older one, Yavod Sa'ir, has to serve the younger. That ultimately, the older brother will be a servant, which means he will help facilitate his younger brother's kingship. They will fight along. They'll fight amongst each other for a long time, but eventually he will yield and he will bend to his younger brother and help the younger brother become what the younger brother needs to be, the ultimate sovereign ruler in the world, which is going to be Moshiach. So we know an interesting thing. When someone is a servant, a Jewish servant, and by the way, Esau is considered a Jew. Unlike Yishmael, who is not Jewish, because Yishmael, the brother of Yitzchak, Abraham's son, is not Jewish because he doesn't have a Jewish mother. But Esau himself is Jewish because he has a Jewish mother. Comes from Rebekah, from the same mother. Rivka is the mother. So he was Jewish. He just was a Jewish sinner, but he was Jewish. His kids are not Jewish anymore, but he's Jewish. Right? So Esau is considered a Jew. He needs to serve his brother. Now, what happens when someone is a servant? So the law is that a servant goes out after 6 years. You serve for 6 years, and then you can't be a servant anymore. But if the person wants to serve longer, for whatever reason, so the law is they take him to the door, and they bore a hole in his ear. And when they bore a hole in his ear, he becomes a servant forever. So it's not by chance that Donald Trump got a hole in his ear before his second, God did it, before his second term. Meaning the first time, he was still, messing around here and there. This time, and so, right? So this is amazing. Now watch. So what happens today? He's not even president yet. Okay? He's shaking the whole world already. So what happened today? You all know. I don't even have to tell you this, but I'm going to I'm going to do it anyways because I would like to read it because it's absolutely fantastic. So this is Trump's message on Truth Social today. Everybody's talking about the hostages who are being held so violently, inhumanely, and against the will of the entire world in the Middle East. But it's all talk and no action. Exclamation mark. Please let this truth, in caps, serve to represent that if the hostages are not released prior to January 20th, 2025, the date that I proudly assume office as President of the United States, there will be, look at these words, in caps, the next words, all hell to pay in the Middle East. And for those in charge who perpetrate these atrocities against humanity, those responsible will be hit harder than anybody has ever been hit in the long and storied history of the United States of America. And then in caps, release the hostages now. Okay, this man means business. And I can promise you that there's a whole bunch of mullahs in Iran and whoever else over there that calls the shots, that are making decisions today, and they're biting their nails and they're cracking their knuckles. And in Yiddish you say, they're pishing in their pants right now. This is awesome. And when did he do it? When did he do it? He waited for this beautiful day. Today, the Rosh Chodesh Kislev, this powerful Mashiach day of redemption. As we said earlier, the Rebbe's day when the Rebbe's came out of the heart attack. Mashiach's energy in full power. What's Mashiach's job? If not to take the Jewish hostages out, to take us all out of being hostage to our evil inclination, to our exile, limited mind, constricted mindfulness. What is this if not Mashiach in action? What is this? What's going on? How can a world that just a month ago, you had 2 months ago, you have the entire world, you have all the marchers at all the universities across the world are marching. What else did Trump do? He warned every college. You dare have these protests, you're all being defunded. This is incredible. The Jewish people went from being downtrodden, spit on, laughed upon, called all kinds of names, accused of everything, to suddenly having this enormous power advocating for them. This is wild. Now, I do want to say something because everything is in a name. Everything is in the name. There is a fascinating Zohar. By the way, I wanted to remind you, I wonder what's still going to happen this Friday. I don't know. Remember, it's the end of the 70 days. I don't know. I'm trying to be a good person and not, I try. Whenever I'm thinking, I have a little, I say, oh, come on. It's still within the 70 days. Mashiach might come tomorrow. Are you going to mess up right before Mashiach comes? For me, this week is like we're waiting. We want to see what is going to happen. So I recommend everybody being your best behaviors at least till Friday. If you're planning on doing something not so good, wait till after Friday. I'll tell you how my mind works. That's how my mind works. I'm thinking like, okay, I don't know what's going to happen Friday. Maybe nothing. I don't know. It's just interesting that all those predictions that the Zohar said. Just wait. We have some really, really crazy things to share with you. Because in this class, I'm going to go a little longer, but there's like really wild stuff going on here. This is like, Mashiach is like full swing, but let's get in a moment. Everything is in a person's name. Everything is in a person's name. So, the Zohar in Parshas Miketz, there's a Zohar in Parshas Miketz, where the Zohar says, Miketz is in a few Torah portions from here. The Zohar says that there are good days and bad days. Good days and bad days. And then the Zohar says these words. Let me read to you the Zohar. This is like, Kadbara kutshebirichu alma. When God created the world, bara le ba'asvin da'iraisi. He created the world with the letters of the Torah. V'chol ois va'ois Olis Kameh. And every letter came before God. Adi is Galgalukul, and until they rolled, the letters were rolling. Everybody, they were coming like in front of Hashem, maybe in a rotation. As these letters were rolling back and forth, each letter picked up a partner. As the letters matched up with letters. One letter matched up with another one. Again, these are the Hebrew letters of the alphabet, all rolling in front of God, and in the course of it, they match up with another letter, and they come as partners in front of God. So I guess this is all by some kind of a divine lottery, some kind of a divine scheme that causes letters to match up with other letters. So it says that the Tes and the Resh somehow fall into the same, onto the same bench. You know, it's like on an amusement park where you're waiting to get onto a ride. I don't know why that example is coming, because I was thinking of a Ferris wheel. And if you don't have, if you went to the amusement park and no one in your family wants to go with you on the ride, you end up going yourself. So you're going to go for this crazy, I haven't been in amusement parks in a long time. I really do. I sometimes say I just one day just want to go to Magic Mountain for the fun of it and go on a roller coaster. It's going to flip me a bunch of times and I can scream like I did like 20, 30 years ago. Okay, I'm sharing my crazy thoughts. The thrill of it, just like the So maybe once someone wants to come with me to Magic Mountain, I'm going to put it out. Maybe I'm going to have some. But the funny thing is, so when the kids were young, I would take them to various, we'd go to the parks. Magic Mountain was always too crazy for us, so we went to Knott's Berry Farm and Disneyland or whatever. In any case, so sometimes, because no one is coming with you, so you go yourself, but they go and they want to fill up the cars, so they'll put anybody. So you end up with a partner over there that you're like, I'm going on this crazy ride, like I don't even know who you are, and we're both putting our lives in danger over here. Who knows if this thing is bad? It's funny sometimes. So I'm thinking about that over here, that the Tes and the Resh end up on the same. They weren't necessarily planning this, but they end up in the cart together, and they come before God, and God sees the Tes sitting like this. It doesn't. And God says to the Tes, you got a buddy there. And the Tes says, what kind of buddy is this? How are you pairing me up with the Resh? The Tes does not want to pair up with the Resh. And the Tes is so upset. And the Tes says, how can you do this to me? I'm the Tes. The Tes stands for Tov, good. The Resh stands for Ra, evil. The Tes, it's what it says. And it doesn't want to sit down. It's like sitting, it's moving away from the Resh. It doesn't want to like settle down in its place. And it says, Tul ad garbe kutshabirichu. Until God has to yell at the Tes and says to him, Tes, 2 times, Tes, Alma Salkis, why are you running away? Why are you running away from V'amalei? And he says, the Torah starts with me. When the Torah begins the Torah, it says, Vayara lakim ki tov. Good. I'm goodness. I'm the first time the Tes is used, I think, is in the word tov. That means my essence is good. How do you connect me to this evil letter, which Resh is the beginning of the word evil, Ra? Amallah, Hashem says to the Tes, Tuv la'asrach, go back to your place. Da'am tzarech la, you need it. Da ben nash, because the human being that I'm going to create, da'na boy lemivra, b'chayin tarvaychan. I'm creating him because of both of you, a Tes and a Resh, because the human being is going to have a Yetzer Tov and a Yetzer Ra. We're going to have a good inclination, evil inclination. And your job is not to kick the evil inclination into the river. Your job is to sublimate and elevate the evil until it becomes a partner to the good. And guess what? When you will sublimate and elevate the evil, it will be a better good than you even. And it will elevate you to an unbelievable heights. The good of the Tes, of the Tov, will be Tov Ma'od, will be super good, when the Resh will be fixed and converted. This is the Zohar. The Alter Rebbe in Biurei HaZohar gives a long explanation and basically explains that this is the secret of the Eitz Hadas, the tree of knowledge, Tov V'Ra, the mixture of good and bad, which later translates as the good going into the Jewish soul, and the Ra going into Esau and his descendants. And this fixing needs to be that when we complete the job of fixing the world, the Tes and the Resh will become buddies, and that will be its ultimate sublimation. So I'm learning the Zohar, and I'm saying, come on. Donald Trump. The name Trump, spelled in Hebrew, Tes and Resh. So what is he? This is the product. When the unholy becomes sublimated, it doesn't become the most refined. That's the good, that's the tzaddik. Refined, elegant. It's coarse. It's rough. But in its roughness and in its coarseness, it uses that bruteness, that strength, to do amazingly good in the world. Tes and Resh together. Could be. I don't know. I can't tell you for sure. I just think it's interesting that his name starts with a Tes and a Resh, the first two letters of his name, which seems to be the connection. In other words, the work that we've done in the sublimation. And that's why we discussed last week, he's also President 45. He was President 45. Because 45 is the Jewish people, the energy of the Jewish people is 45. And when they finish their work, the 45 fixes 52, which needs to be understood how that fits into the plane. But Esau's energy is 52, Yaakov's energy is 45, 45 fixes 52. So the conclusion of the Rebbe says, in 1990, 1992, we finished already. The world has been rectified. And today I saw, Gewalt, oy, Gewalt. Today I saw the Rebbe uses words. Because it says that Yaakov sent messengers to Esau to see how Esau is doing. When Yaakov sent messengers to Esau, what's Esau's response? I'm coming to fight you with 400 men. So Hasidism explains that Yaakov is sending messengers to Esau, asking Esau, are you ready? Are you ready to come together, brother? Hey, bro, how are you doing? Are we ready to go build a temple? Are we ready together to elevate the whole world? Yaakov sends messengers. What does Esau? The messengers come back and they say, your brother is not ready at all. He's not rectified at all. He's a total mess. He's a killer. He's a brute. He's coming to fight you. He's coming to destroy you. He's coming to destroy what you're going to build. So Yaakov says, okay, sorry. It'll take time. He doesn't give up on the job, but he knows it's going to take time. 3,500 years of work. But the Rebbe uses the term. And now the Rebbe says, I don't have the words in front of me, which is so beautiful when I read it. The Rebbe says, and now when we send to Esau and we say, are you ready? What are we going to hear? He's going to say, yes, I'm ready. I'm coming with you. Esau that geben that enfid, something like that, the Rebbe uses the term. Esau is going to give the answer because he's really ready. Hineni, I'm with you. Let's go build a temple. And as I told you before, all the people that Trump has taken and put around him are as pro-Israel as can be. As pro-Israel being the inheritance of the Jewish people. No question. Even as we discussed, even some of them suggesting that the Jewish people should build their temple already. This is wild. Things that Jews wouldn't say because they were afraid to upset the Arabs. But they're saying it. This is crazy. Now, one of the prophecies, now this stuff you can't make up. This is happening in front of our eyes. One of the prophecies that it says regarding the world of Yaakov and the world of Esau is in next week's Torah portion, Pashas Vayishlach, when we have the real confrontation of Yaakov and Esau. It says, V'hoya beis Yaakov le'esh. The house of Yaakov, the house of Jacob, will be fire. Ubeis Yosef, and the house of Joseph, lahava, will be a flaming flame. Ubeis Esau, and the house of Esau, lakash, to straw. That means Esau Esau's world will turn to straw, and Yaakov will be fire. And the idea that the Navi is, that the prophet is trying to illustrate, is just like straw cannot stand up against fire. When fire comes in, you can have an enormous amount of straw, but when fire comes in, it burns it. So the fire will burn the straw. Now, burning the straw does not mean destroying it. Burning the straw means cleansing out, purifying it. Purifying it. Now the Rebbe, I have something, I'm going to drop a bomb in a second. Not me, I'm just sharing with you the stuff that are happening. But the Rebbe says, in one of those last talks that the Rebbe gave, that who is the house of Yaakov in our days? Yaakov is the Jewish people, but who particularly is it? The Rebbe says Yaakov is referring to the first Chabad Rebbe. He's Yaakov in our generation. Because Yaakov was the third of a series of, the third of our patriarchs. The three patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. So in the end of days, we also have the biggest, ginormous tzaddikim come to the world to rectify the world. The Baal Shem Tov being the first, the founder of Hasidism. Rebbe Dov Ber, the Holy Maggid, is the second. And the third, Reb Shneur Zalman of Liadi, first Chabad Rebbe. The one who the 19th of Kislev we spoke about before are the days of his release from prison. Okay? So the Rebbe says Beis Yaakov is referring the Alter Rebbe, his house. That means the house of Chabad, the house of this dynasty will be the fire. Beis Yosef. Who is Beis Yosef? Now we know that Jacob had a son, Joseph. So Yaakov is a fire, but it's a containable fire. When you make the house of Joseph takes Yaakov's small fire, fans the flames, and turns it into an inferno, a blazing fire. That's what Yosef does to Yaakov. Like you see in the life of Jacob. Jacob would have been a small family. Yaakov would have been a small family in Israel. Yosef takes Yaakov and brings him down to Egypt. And from there on, the Jewish people march to take the whole world. From the exile of Egypt, we come out of there, we go through the sea, we're given the Torah, the mandate to lift all of creation, a light onto the nation. It's all because of Joseph. So the Rebbe says in modern times, this is fulfilled as well, in Messianic times. Yaakov is the Alter Rebbe. Who's his son Yosef? The Chabad Rebbe, who's called Yosef. That's the sixth Rebbe, the Rebbe says. That's Yosef. But then the Rebbe says in the Ha'ar, this is so cool, in his footnote, he says it doesn't say Yosef, it says Beis Yosef, the house of Yosef. Who's the house of Yosef? That's the one who married into the family of Yosef. The previous Lubavitch Rebbe had a daughter whose name was Chaya Mushka. And in the month of Kislev, we're going to celebrate in 2 weeks, on the 14th day of Kislev, the night, I think, to the 15th, 14th to 15th, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, our Rebbe, Rebbe Menachem Mendel, married Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka, the daughter of Rebbe Yosef, of Rebbe Yosef Yitzchak, the sixth Rebbe, who, by the way, fought the communists like a lion and defeated them. Okay, because Chabad is now standing in Russia and the old communists are gone. So Rebbe Yosef Yitzchak, he's the fire. He's the flame. But his house is the one that takes the flame and spreads it all over the world. And what does he do to the world of Esau? He takes all the evil of Esau, destroys it, and all what's left of Esau is only the good. So the Rebbe is basically hinting to. He doesn't say it openly. The house of Joseph is the couple that comes from Joseph. Joseph's children. That's the Rebbe. So we know that yesterday, President Trump sent waves across the United States in a way, you ready? By appointing a new FBI director. So they were saying about Trump that he's being very disruptive into Washington. But one of the most important agencies that he wants to clean up is the State Department and the FBI and the whole thing. because he feels that there's a lot of corruption there, and there's a lot of stuff that are going on there that are no good. So he put out his guy, and they really don't like him. Those who, the FBI today, whoever is there is very unhappy with this pick. And when they're not happy, it's because, obviously they're hiding something, and they don't want someone to come in there and to shake things up. Well, guess what his name is? Kash Patel. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correct. It's a fellow, he's actually from India. And he's the chosen one that Trump had chosen to lead the FBI because he feels that he's going to clean the house. His name is Kash. It happens to say, V'hoya beis Esau lakash, that the house of Esau will turn into straw, into fodder, into straw to kash, which means it will be through the fire of Yaakov. If we're going to read into names, pretty interesting. I think so. Maybe. I'm not sure. But it's interesting that the house of Esau, is now going to go through a cleansing through a person. Now, I don't know if he's going to be nominated. They have to go through Senate confirmation. But in terms of him, he appointed him as, okay, interesting, no? Now let's take it further. And I want to share with you something stunning. Stunning. This will take 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Stunning. One of these interesting characters that have come into Trump's team and has become like locked with the Trump presidency now is a fellow by the name of Elon Musk. Now, Elon Musk is an interesting character because he's the richest person in the world. Okay. Now, he just, as I mentioned earlier, became a supporter of Trump just after that assassination attempt. Now, he pumped millions and millions and millions of dollars into Trump's presidential campaign. An astronomical amount of number he was giving. But even more than that, the most important thing he did for him was he bought Twitter. And by doing that, he saved Trump from being silenced. They wanted to silence him, and because he bought Twitter, he basically made it impossible for them to silence Trump on social media. So I guess Trump feels pretty much connected to him, so much so that when I was watching the night of the election, when we were watching the election results, and Trump, and he came out and he gave his victory speech, I don't think Trump was prepared to I don't think that Trump believed that he would win that night. I thought, and everybody thought, it would be a dragged out fight. It would be, it ended up being stunning, that just by the time 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever it was called. So Trump came out and he spoke. And I didn't think it was too of a good speech. It was like here and there. He was just rambling. He really was rambling. But for some reason, all he was talking about was Elon Musk. You remember that? He was talking about him, about his pellet. I don't know, not all, but quite a bit of it. And now you see him, the two of them all together. And then he gave him a big job opened up a new agency called Doge, or whatever, department, or whatever, cleaning out wasteful spending, right? Interesting. In other words, to make America efficient again, the American government efficient again, to whatever they're doing. But I found it very interesting. Who's this Elon? How does he suddenly come in? And it's funny because you would expect him to be more Democrat-leaning, and he really was. And it's interesting. You know what's interesting in this whole process? That most of the people now who are in Trump's team, including Trump himself, are all Democrats who went. They left the Democratic Party and moved more towards center-right. JFK, Democrat, Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, and Trump himself was not a conservative. So there was like this. Everybody over here is like part of some kind of a flip, some kind of a reshifting, which is interesting. But listen to this. I'm wondering who's this Elon Musk? Again, if Trump has biblical significance, which I think he does. Not I think he does. He definitely does. Impossible that he doesn't. Because based on the natural flow of things, he shouldn't be anywhere close to the White House. He's there because God put him there. There's no question. This is divine, clearly God's hands moving the pieces over here. But Elon Musk must also be some kind of an interesting figure. So watch this amazing idea. Connected to Moshiach. Mind-blowing idea connecting to Moshiach. As I said earlier, Moshiach is the one that fixes Esau. And only Moshiach can fix Esau. Moshiach is the grandson of Jacob, but he's the ultimate realization of Jacob. He's the ultimate power of Jacob. What's that power? It's the power of limitlessness. It's the ultimate power of God, and therefore nothing can stand in the way, and anything that gets in the way flips over. Whatever is extremely dark maybe gets dismantled and gets disintegrates, like we're seeing in certain parts of the left. The bottom, we discussed last week, the bottom half of the left, the wokiness and all that cuckoo-ness, it completely was obliterated, was completely sent into the recycling bin. It's gone. I don't know what's going to happen, but and then maybe it's going to be. Hopefully, it's going to be recycled to something good, because I'm sure there's could be something good over there, but it has to be recycled. Meaning, as it is, it needs to go to the garbage out. But in general, whatever there is that's like a force of opposition, not only does Moshiach is Mashiach able to defeat it, but Mashiach is able to take it and use it, bring it into its team, turn it into an ally. That's Mashiach's power. Okay? Now, the power of infinity, when it comes to godliness, when it comes to the divine, God doesn't always operate in an infinite way. God sometimes operates within a certain construct of limitation. And when we use numbers, God operating within limitation is within the construct of 10. God operating without limitation is the number 11. 11 represents the limitlessness of God, the infinity of God, power that is without an end. Fine. That's why we discussed so much that Moshiach is number 11. And I've discussed it to you again and again and again. That's why the Rebbe is number 11. He was born on the 11th day of Nisan, and he became Rebbe on the 11th month, the 11th day, the 11th hour, the 11th year. Everything 11, 11, 11, 11. And the Rebbe speaks about it himself. Because the Rebbe says that represents Mashiach, which is the infinite power of God that has no limitations and it has no boundaries and it's unchecked power. Gewalt. Now, and that's the only power that can elevate, can transform Esau, because as strange as it sounds, Esau himself also is connected to number 11, because evil derives its power not from 10 but from 11. I'm not going to go into all the Kabbalistic. That's why evil seems to be so powerful, unbreakable. That's why when we always looked at darkness, we thought we will never get rid of it. What we were thinking when we were looking just a few months ago, like, wow, how in the world? They're so powerful, they're so big, they have control over the meat, they have control over this, they have control over that, it's endless. And the exile feels like it's never ending. Because in a strange way, the forces of darkness are plugged, and especially Esau is plugged into the forces of 11. How do you know that? Esau has 11 chiefs. In next week's Torah portion, it's going to speak about the descendants of Esau, the kingdom of Esau, and it mentions 11 chiefs. Aluf means a chief. Esau's kingdom was made up of tribes, and there were 11 chieftains of the descendants of Esau. Now we understand that wasn't only back then. These are the 11 powers of Esau. It's powered by number 11, enormous power. And that's why only when, and usually holiness is only the power of 10. Holiness is within borders, but the unholy is plugged into an infinite power. Only in the days of Moshiach, and I'm not going to go into how this all works, because it's not a class for now. Only as a result of all the work that Jacob does, that Yaakov does during the time of exile, does Yaakov manage to access number 11. And when he accesses the power of number 11, he can transform his brother Esau and lift him up. And that's why, I'm going to just give you a small little thing. When do we convert number 11? Converting number 11 means to convert sin itself, evil itself, into good. When I say converting number 11, it means to convert the negative power of 11. To convert the negative power of 11 and turn that over into good takes the holy power of 11. Follow? The holy power of 11 conquers the unholy power of 11. And when it does that, it's symbolized in transforming sin into merit. Sins become merit. When is that done? On Yom Kippur. The holiest day of the year, we do teshuvah, we do repentance, and transform the darkness of which the sins itself become merits. How was it done? When the time of the temple stood, listen to this, the time the temple stood, it was done through the two goats. Everybody knows the concept of a scapegoat. You have two goats that were brought in the temple, and one of the goats was sent off into the desert and thrown down, which represented casting all the sins away. And when that happened, the energy of the sins themselves became converted to holiness. As you see that a red ribbon, the sages tell us that there was a red ribbon that would turn white. Now take something very interesting. The ribbon that represented the unholiness, the sins, which color was it? Red. Who is red? Who was born red? Esau is a redhead. So he's predisposed to sin, to the redness. Then, take it further, Esau is also called Ish Sa'ir. Simply means he's very hairy. But spiritually means he's connected to the goat. Sa'ir, the goat, in Hebrew, a goat is called Sa'ir. And goat is an animal associated with the other side. That's why you ever see pictures of demons? When they try to capture image of demons, it's goats. Because goats are always associated with the dark side, with the other side, with the demonic side, with the satanic side. Esau, he's red and hairy. So Yom Kippur, when the Kohen Gadol, there is Kohen Gadol is number 11. He's above all, spiritually. He goes in not to holiness, because holiness is 10. He goes into the holy of holies, which is number 11. And how does he go there? Because he does tshuva. He gets the Jewish people to do tshuva. What is tshuva? Tshuva is repentance. Tshuva is when we activate the number 11 in our soul. Our infinite bond with God. That's what tshuva. A tzaddik, a righteous person, is operating with limited energy. A bal tshuva, someone who's repenting, gets so frustrated with his sins, so frustrated with the darkness, that it triggers inside of them such an explosion. They become like, and that's number 11 energy, infinite energy, bursting energy. And only when we activate such energy of tshuva are we able to take the darkness and transform the darkness to light on Yom Kippur. Now, what did the high priest do in the Holy of Holies? He burnt spices. How many spices were in that concoction? 11 spices. Achad asar samamanim. Included in those 11 spices. So number one, you see already the number 11. So when the Kohen, the high priest, takes to the Holy of Holies these 11 spices, he's activating number 11, and he's converting all the darkness, all the sin to light. He's converting Esau to Jacob. He's taking all the darkness. He's eventually bringing Moshiach in the Holy of Holies. See, it's all this conversion energy. We only access it once a year, Yom Kippur. It's so powerful. By the way, when Esau came into Isaac to get the blessings, remember last week, Esau comes to get the blessings, but his brother Yaakov took it from him already. But it says when Yaakov came in and he's wearing Esau's clothing, that's what happened. Yaakov comes in and he's wearing Esau's clothing, dressed like Esau, because his mother masqueraded him, dressed him up like Esau. It says Isaac smelled. He smelled his clothing. The Targum says he smelled the Ketores. And he was overwhelmed and he said, what was he smelling? You know what he was smelling? He was then picking up, this is Yaakov, but Yaakov has Esau's scent. Which scent? The rectified Esau. The Esau of the year 2025, not the Esau of Rome 2,000 years ago. That was not a holy scent. That was a dark scent. He's smelling the new Esau, the future Esau, the future Esau. Esau converted. Number 11 converted. He smells that smell. That's number 11. This is the great scent that he smells. Unbelievable. Now, to take this further, just one more point. In the Esau, in the Ketorah's concoction, usually all of it was made out of herbs. Different herbs, spices. One of the spices were made out of a non-kosher animal, blood from a non-kosher animal. Usually you're not allowed to use anything non-kosher in a mitzvah. This is one of the exceptions where they allowed a non-kosher thing into a mitzvah. According to Maimonides, not everybody agrees to it. There's a certain perfume coming from a non-kosher, from a glands of a certain animal that they would use in the Ketorahs. And it's called mor. Mor means bitter. And that is flipped over. So why are you using it? Because the whole Ketorah is to flip the darkness, the non-kosher to kosher. The power of number 11. To flip Esau. Unbelievable, right? Watch this. The Rebbe says, now I'll take you back to the Rebbe. Hold the thought. Please hold the thought, because this is mind-blowing. The Rebbe says, going back to the Rebbe is talking about Moshiach being here already, and the power of 11 is active in the world, referring to himself, not saying me, but referring to his position that he has, and so on and so forth. This is in the talk, the 22nd day of Shvat. The Rebbe says, within number 11, there is various different levels of 11. The deepest and highest level of number 11 is 2 times 11, which is 22. Which he says is associated with my wife, my Rebbetzin, who passed away. The Rebbe was talking on the yard side of his wife's passing. And the Rebbe says because through the women, the Jewish women hold the key to the deepest point of number 11, not the Jewish men. The Jewish women, because they're the ones who lead the way to Mashiach. The Jewish women hold the key to the deepest level of number. So in 11, there's 2 levels of 11. The deepest point of number 11 is associated with Jewish women. And then the Rebbe goes, and he says, the deepest point of number 11 is connected to his wife, and he connects it to the last few years of his leadership when his wife wasn't alive anymore, meaning she wasn't physically alive here. And he says her energy is what's producing these last few years. These powerful Mashiach lights, it's coming from my wife's holy soul who passed away. She's generating that energy because of her service, together with all the Jewish women, is now downloading all this enormous 11 energy through which we're going to take over, transform the entire world. And he says his wife has 2 names, Chaya, Mushka. His wife's name is Chaya Mushka. So the Rebbe says Chaya is one level of life. It's referring to the energies of the soul. Mushka, he says, is the encompassing deepest point of number 11 of the soul. Why? Because he says, you know what the root of the name Mushka is? The root of the name Mushka is musk. Musk, which the Talmud says is one of the spices of the ketoret, one of the spices of the incense. Actually, which spice? The spice of the non-kosher animal that gets converted, which is the ultimate power of number 11. So it's this dimension of energy that my wife represents, the mushka energy, which is this ultimate energy of number 11 that has infinite power, that can transform everything to holiness. Even the darkest things are transformed. And the Rebbe goes through in one of the footnotes explaining, is the word the mushka or is it the musk? So it occurs to me last week, Gewalt, this guy who took Donald Trump and gave him a microphone to speak to the whole world when they tried to muzzle him. It means they tried to stop him. Musk comes along and releases and allows him and gives him. Without Musk buying Twitter, they would have shut him down. So the whole thing is related to, and particularly the power for it to be limitless, for him to have a voice throughout the entire world. Isn't that crazy? And his name is Musk. But here's the wild part. What's his first name? Elon, which is, by the way, a Jewish name. I always thought that Musk was Jewish because he has a Jewish first name. Elon. The word Elon, the first two letters, if you spell it in Hebrew, because Elon is a Hebrew name, is Aleph Yud, which is 11. So his first name, his last name, is referring to this incredible messianic energy to convert Esau and turn him into an ally for holiness. So then I found him in last week's Torah portion. Where does Esau get the power of 11? In darkness, before it gets converted, where does he get the power? It says that Esau married a woman. Take a look in last week's Torah portion. I don't know which. It's right before the story of the blessings. It's 2 verses before the story, when the story starts with the drama of Isaac, Yitzchak giving the blessings to Esau, wanting to give to Esau, and Yaakov comes in his place. It says that Esau marries two. Esau was 40 years old, and he went and he married 2 wives. One of them is, her name was Yehudit bat Be'eri. That's one of them. And the second one, her name is Basmas, Bas Elon. So I'm thinking to myself, Basmas. That made me go, because Basmas is the word Besamim. Besamim is fragrances. Basmas, fragrance, Bas Elon. Elon Musk. Because the fragrance, musk is a fragrance. That has to do with the fragrance of the incense, of the Ketores. And by the way, it says whoever, this is one that I just see. God, I love you. Because this happened to me right now. You just watched an epiphany right now. This is good. This is so good. I'm doing already the Trump dance, right? What's so good? What's so good? Why am I so excited? The Talmud tells us that if you want to become wealthy, anybody that offered the incense, any Kohen who offered the incense, became wealthy. That's why they never allowed a Kohen, because they used to do the incense not only on Yom Kippur, they used to do it every day. Once in the morning or once in the afternoon. They never let a Kohen repeat. If you did it once in your lifetime, that's it. You didn't get a chance. Because they made lotteries and they wouldn't let you into the lottery. You did it once? No. Why? Because everybody wants to have the zechut, because it was good to finish Ketores and go buy a lottery or whatever it is. There was a great blessing for wealth from Ketores. If Elon Musk is connected to Ketores, will make sense why he is the craziest, richest person in the entire world. Is that not cool? Is that not awesome? So here you have Kash, is one of his guy, Elon Musk. I mean, and who's behind this all? Rebbe Chaya Mushka. How do you like that? The Rebbe and his wife. The king and the queen. Okay. Meanwhile, let me finish up with 2 powerful quick thoughts. Please forgive, because it's only gonna make you feel good. Meanwhile, Biden the other day decided to pardon his son, right? Today, yes. And it was a shock because he promised he's never going to pardon his son Hunter. And yesterday he goes and he pardoned his son Hunter. Until now he was able to argue the high road. Trump doesn't respect the law. January 6th, just totally thinks he's above the law. But me, President Biden, I obey the law. I'm to the law. I put the law in front of me. No one is above the law. How many times did you get to hear Joe Biden say it? No one is above the law. And he promised again and again that he wouldn't pardon his son. And yesterday, puts out the shock. The Democrats are going crazy. What are you doing? You just ruined everything. Now we can't even argue that at least we lost, but at least we have a high ground. You can't even argue that. The guy went and he pardoned his son. Okay. But I like to read much deeper. What's the deeper story? What's the deeper story? Biden, we were reading into names, right? Biden, if you break the words down into Hebrew, stands for Beit Din. In him is judgment. God has an attribute of kindness and an attribute of judgment. From his attribute of kindness, we always seek mercy and forgiveness. But we know that the attribute of judgment says no. Who's God's son? The Jewish people. The Jewish people have all kinds of accusations. That's what's keeping the exile in place. The exile is there because we're not so perfect. Maybe we sinned. Maybe we did this. Okay, we did a lot of exile, but we sin again. And, you do the crime, you got to do the time. Comes the president. Now, a sitting president is a very powerful. Sitting president is when he does something, it means something big. So when President Biden pardons his son, what that means to me is that even the side of judgment of God is saying, I have nothing anymore against the Jewish people. I am lifting up. And when did that also happen? Even Biden is following the Rebbe's calendar. On the first day of the month of Kislev, on Rosh Chodesh Kislev, happened actually the first day of Rosh Chodesh, but it was where even before he says what? I'm pardoning my son. And even if my son is behaving like Hunter, which Hunter is, Esau was a hunter. So when Jews behave like non-Jews, that means Hunter. He's a Jew, but he should be behaving like a Jew. But instead, he should be a son of the president, which means a son of God, a son of the king. Should be behaving, keeping all the mitzvot. If he's not, he's like the Alter Rebbe says, Oisa Maaseh Edom. He's doing the work of Edom. Sometimes Jews behave like the non-Jew, or like a not good non-Jew, God forbid. And then we say, at least the attribute of judgment says, how can we redeem the Jewish people? How can we? He's still sinning. What did we have today? Full pardon. But what's even greater is, Biden promised he wouldn't do so. So it says to God, even if you promised you wouldn't do so, even if God himself had said, no, I can't, I'm going to wait until they do teshuvah, until they become all good, God goes back on his word and he pardons Israel and the Jewish people. And we're ready to build the Holy Temple. He's ready to take us home. That's big news. That's before Trump. That's crazy. But if we have to go build a temple, this is my last parting thought for today. If we have to go build a temple, we have to remove what is an obstacle to the temple. There's one thing that's an obstacle to the temple. Powerful. Everybody knows there was a few years ago, there was the Arab Spring. In the beginning of the year, when was it, 2010, I think? That's when the Arab Spring started. 2011, I don't remember. Where country after country after country in the world of Arabia, in the entire Muslim world, these despots, rulers, these ruthless dictators, the Arabs, the Muslims were revolting. And they overthrew them. And civil wars broke out and protests. So in Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood was removed from power. In In which countries? It affected a bunch. In Libya, Gaddafi was taken down. In Sudan, there were a few countries that this, like everywhere, they were all, enough is enough. Boom, they took off their rulers. It was great. Including Syria. However, mysteriously, from all these ruthless rulers, one guy survived. And that was Assad. Assad, for whatever reason, managed to hold on to his chair tightly. As much as they tried to evict him and overthrow him, he could. And he dealt with his people ruthlessly, including chemical weapons, including whatnot, killed millions. The civil war of Syria, terrible. What's the secret? Why did from all of them, why did he survive? Assad. So I'm not giving you the geopolitical or whatever explanation. I'm going to give you a mysterious, a mystical, or a Torah explanation. Could be. You know, the Holy Temple has an antithesis, a country, Damascus, which is the capital of Syria, in Hebrew, it's called Damascus. Damascus is the same letters as Mikdash. You ever thought about that? Mikdash is Mem Kuf Daled Shin. Damascus is Daled Mem Shin Chaf or Kuf. It's the exact same letters as Mikdash, but on a different order. What does that tell you? That Damascus is a force that doesn't allow the Holy Temple to be built. That's why it says that when Damascus falls, the temple could be built. There is a statement by, I'm going to read it to you right now, just very quickly. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, pretty, we can trust him, right? He's the author of the Zohar. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, let me find it. Give me 1 second. I have to share this with you. I have to share this with you. Oh. It's a Medrash Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, but I have to go back for a minute to get you the statement. Here we go. Just give me back. Let me give you just a tiny bit. Please give me a minute. It's a fascinating Midrash, and I think most people don't. I didn't even know about this. I didn't even. Why would I know? But I didn't know. Amongst all the million other things I don't know. But this is one of them I didn't know. But now I'm happy I do know it. So let me tell you what happened over here. Please help me find it. So there is, give me maybe one more back. This guy puts out a Geula message every day. Oh, I think it will be. Oh, here it is. It's in Sefer Oitzer Midrashim. This is the Midrash of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. It says over here, V'halacha ois. This is the sign. Kisha'ataraya, when you see Shenofal, that it fell, Niron Mizrachi, the eastern ruler. Niron means the king. Shebedamesek, that is in Damascus. Nafla Malchus B'nei Mizrach, that's when the whole eastern kingdom has died. Va'az titzmach ha'yeshua liYisrael, and then the salvation to Israel will come. U'Mashiach ben David ba, and Mashiach ben David comes. V'yalo liYerushalayim, and we will go up to Jerusalem. Damascus and Jerusalem. So now I can understand why the Satan did whatever he can, even though the Arab Spring was reshuffling all the leaders and they were removing them all. He was the one that managed to survive. Now, to make it even juicier, to show how that he is this power, he is this darkness. The first time the temple is mentioned in the Torah, is in the Song of the Sea, where it says, Mikdash Hashem. Migdash Hashem. The temple. It's the first time it says Migdash in the Torah. Migdash Hashem konenu yadecha. The temple of God that your hands have established. Now the Migdash, Hashem, which name of God is spelled over there? Doesn't say Yud Kei Vav Kei. It says Migdash Aleph Dalid Nun Yud. One of God's names, Aleph Dalid Nun Yud. Now Aleph Dalid Nun Yud is the numeric value of 65. Aleph and Dalid is 5, Nun is 50, and Yud is 10, 65. Aleph Dalid Nun Yud is 65. Migdash Adna. That means the temple is whose temple? Which name of God specifically? Aleph Dalid Nun Yud. If Damascus is the antithesis to the temple, then Damascus, Assad. Do I have to say further? Think about the word Assad. How do you spell Assad? Aleph, Samach, Daled. Assad is the antithesis to the Holy Temple. Him in Damascus. And guess what happened in the last week? The rebels in Syria decided to attack. They are rolling across Syria. They've already conquered Aleppo. They're going from city to city to city. Syria is calling to Iran to help, to Russia to help them. Russia's busy with its own war. It can't really help them. Russia's helping them a little bit. Turkey really is supporting the Syrians. We're dealing with a brink of war taking place. Now, what did we say what did we say from the Zohar, the other Zohar? That when the new king will be established, wars will start in the two sides of the world, remember? Syria is going up in flames. There is a massive takeover, and they're taking over with stunning speed. They're trying to stop them. Assad doesn't know what to do. He's trying to round up help. It's very likely that tomorrow you'll wake up to the news that Assad they've killed him, whatever, they took over, I don't know what. The fact that these things are happening right now, boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy, are we in the zone? Boy, oh boy, are we ready? Wow, it's awesome. Meanwhile, what can we do? Say another prayer, do another mitzvah, keep yourself in a positive mindset, be happy, be strong. Take a deep breath and say, I'm ready for Moshiach. Goodness will prevail. Holiness will prevail. Truth will prevail. And then in your own life, know that all the evil and all the Assads that are inside of us, that kind of had a grip on us, we have to be able to look at them and say no more. It's amazing. May we merit the final redemption with kindness and mercy and ease, with love and light. After all, we've been pardoned already. We've all been pardoned.